Hello and welcome to Leading Minds' first podcast. This is going to be a series of podcasts where every week we'll be bringing in entrepreneurs to talk about their experiences in and around mental health and how it's affected their business and personal lives. Now, what better place to start than our own journeys and the issues and problems that we've faced along the way as entrepreneurs that have led us to create Leading Minds. So today is all going to be about ourselves, and hopefully you'll be able to resonate with you guys, and you'll be able to take away points from this to know that you're not on your own. One of the biggest problems that we face when dealing with mental health issues is we think we're the only ones that are dealing with that issue. The whole point and one of the reasons behind Leading Minds is to make sure that everybody that's going through challenges and problems in relation to mental health have an outlet to be able to say, okay, I'm not on my own. There's somebody else going through this, and that it resonates with them to say, right, I need to reach out now and I need to start my journey to a better life.
So let's get into it then.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
What does it mean to be an entrepreneur? What does it mean to experience everyday life issues which you would not being an entrepreneur, working a normal 9 to 5, but I guess not having that support network, whether it be a HR employee saying, oh, we can provide you with X, Y, and Z resources, whether it be time off or whether it be seeing therapists, etc. I think you've been in this game a lot longer than me, and I've actually not even been comfortable like calling myself an entrepreneur, but like having you as a friend and a mentor and now business partner, and you're affirming that to me, it gives me a lot more confidence, and having other people say it as well. But from, I guess, for me, it was slightly taking out all the really serious aspects like overcoming addiction, childhood trauma, various other aspects as well. It was a little bit of an imposter syndrome as well. Like, I'm surrounding myself with some amazing people like yourself and various others, and I'm like, how do I get there? How do I get there quicker? You know, I need to be where they are. I need to be achieving these things.
That's interesting. What do you think getting there? What's the end goal?
So that's a common question now. I ask it to people, and we said this in the intro, and as cheesy as it says, as it sounds, I don't care. It is to die happy in every single aspect. I understand that money is a very, very useful tool to get you to specific places, holidays, nice car. You know, I ask the question to myself and to people that I'm coaching at the moment. And I'm like, what car do you want to drive? What house do you want to live in? How much money do you want to earn in a month? These are important things, because if your income doesn't match the lifestyle you want to live, you know, you're not going to live that lifestyle, and that can mean that you become unhappy, and then you're equating that happiness to money, which I understand why people do it, but it's not healthy to do it.
It's not healthy to do it, because I think in this day and age, it's very easy to create a facade. Right. Across social media, even out and about. Like I've met people who have carried themselves very, very well, but they're just a shell of a person.
Yeah.
There's nothing behind it to back it up. That relates back to mental health issues, because people that lack that self-confidence, which a lot of people do in the first instance, they will look to aspire to be like someone who actually has no basis, but is able to create that perception that they are something. And social media is a big problem, a big issue, where it creates a facade in and around, you know, living this kind of life, going to this restaurant, going on these holidays. But you kind of sit there and don't think about what the reality is. You only think about what's presented to you at that point in time.
That exactly. But what a lot of these people that follow these guys don't realize is that those people going to Mykonos and going to Vegas and wherever else they want to be, that may well be their reality. But what the other person doesn't see is the hard graft which has gone into that.
There is that
they
as
didn't
well,
just
as well,
end up in those
yeah,
positions, eating in
exactly,
Noble and Hakkasan
exactly.
and all these other fancy places.
Exactly.
They've built whatever business, whatever reputation that they have through hard work. Okay, they might have had a little bit of help on the way. I think people, in order for you to achieve, I say real success, whatever someone's perception of success is, but in order for you to achieve these $1 million, $1 billion companies, you're not doing that on your own. No one's doing it on their own. You need help.
Of course you need help. At the end of the day, a lot of people see this, and this is what kind of worries me. You're a father, I'm a father, right? With my daughter growing up, I don't want her to think that you can achieve something with minimal effort and be really successful. And that's the perception, the delusion that we're living in this day and age. Everybody wants the life, but they don't want to do anything for it. And then it again links back to mental health, because you sit there and you kind of think, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough. And in fact, it comes back to you, because you sit there looking around, you don't necessarily know what's behind the scenes, but you'll take someone on face value and say, do you know what? Yeah, I'm working, I've set my business, I'm successful, but I want to be like him. But you don't know what him is.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? And this goes back to my question. How do you know what the end goal is, right? You're referring to the fact that, and to put it in your words, die happy. In essence, what is that? You want to leave a legacy, right? And I think with that mindset, leaving a legacy for, in the sense that making your child's life happier, your family's life happier, or a lot easier. I mean, we've both got the same background, right? We've come from quite nefarious beginnings, and
to put it lightly,
and then basically got to a point where, you kind of sit there and you say to yourself, okay, there's got to be another way, right? So getting to that point in itself is a journey, you know what I mean? But being able to have that mindset that you want to leave a legacy, you're building for making your child's life a lot easier, so that they don't have to live the way that you had to live. They don't need to hustle the way you had to hustle, or have to do the things that you had to do. That is a big enough goal that just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And there was a friend of mine. He was a boss of mine. He was my boss, actually, and I've known him for about 20 years. And I always used to say to him, Chris, you're never satisfied. You're never satisfied. Like, take a few seconds, enjoy what we've achieved. He's like, no. I need to keep moving. I need to keep moving forward. I've got this goal I want to achieve. I've got this, this dream that I want to achieve. I can't stop. You know what I mean? And I think coming back to the point of you saying, well, people don't see that. They don't see the journey and the challenges. And I think this is what this is all about, is making people aware that there are some serious issues that you have to go through to get to that end goal. From a mental health perspective, there's going to be times you are on your own. There's times when you're literally in the most darkest of places, and there's nobody else to reach out because they don't understand. I mean, from my perspective, my situation, I set up my first business when I was 24 years old, and hand in hand with everything else that I was doing in and around that time, and I set up a training company. So we set up this training company offering soft skills, management courses, customer service courses, this, that, and the other, and we grew it to one of the largest training companies in the UK. We had 6 offices around the country. We were doing, 6-7 courses a day out of that. We had about 50 trainers on our books. We were doing international courses for BP, for Shell, etc., etc. I was like 24 years old. You know what I mean? For me, it was like, this is great. This is what I want to be doing. And then 2009, 2008 came, recession hit, and the majority of our customers were councils. And at that time, learning and development, there's this massive push with diversity. We'd created these air quality and diversity courses. All the councils were buying them. We'd accredited our courses to level 3, level 4, and the councils were loving it. We had some really big private clients as well, but the councils were made up bulk of the business. So as soon as the financial crisis hit, literally, Courtney, overnight, like someone flicked a switch. And we used to, obviously you can imagine, we used to book up in advance those training courses. All of a sudden we're getting phone calls. The phone was off the hook. We need to cancel. And at the beginning was like, okay, you're kind of punch drunk with all these calls coming in. And then you've got BP and Shell doing worldwide rollouts that turn around and say, right, actually, no, we're now going to move from 30-day payment terms to 90-day payment terms. So not only your bread and butter has gone, your bigger clients are now saying, right, we need more time. Now, these trainers still needed to get paid. So unfortunately, it was kind of out of our hands, and that hurts. That hurts because you take that really personally. Right. And I've looked back and I've assessed it, and, it was really out of our hands at that time. And then from that, I got into digital advertising, and I learned that from generating business through the training company. So got into digital advertising and I loved it. That happened, and I managed to set up then my own advertising agency, where I had around about 30 staff across 4 offices in 3 countries. And we developed this technology that was able to really simplify the whole cost per acquisition, cost per lead model for small to medium businesses. It was at its peak where I started suffering. And even to this day, I sit there and I think to myself, okay, what was the trigger? And I still can't figure out the trigger. But what it resulted in was me making some really, really poor decisions. Got to a point in 2016, I remember, that there was occasions where I was in my bed for about a week, curtains shut. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to meet anyone. I'd make any excuse not to leave the house. And it kind of happened overnight. I don't remember it creeping up on me or me having any warning signs or red flags up until that point. And, I remember every day I used to wake up and I used to say to myself, today's the day. Today I'm going to get up. Today I'm going to change my life. But that today never came. And you kind of sit there, you don't know it's depression. You don't know that's what it is. You kind of think to yourself, I'm being lazy. I've got a lack of motivation. I can't, I'm not able to, this is a phase. I'll get through it. And it just got worse and worse and worse. Like my self-confidence was through the floor. I had a few issues personally that then impacted or kind of perpetuated that. And 2016 for me was, I don't remember 2016. It's almost as if I've kind of blocked it out. But it was a really dark place for me. And I think it was everything catching up on me at that point. The trauma, you're talking about childhood trauma. Childhood trauma was an element of it. The environment growing up, social environment growing up was an element of it. Decisions that you kind of make in your younger years was an element of it. A huge element of guilt, which I'd never really felt before, because I'd just been 100 miles an hour, like that 100 miles an hour. I'd never really stopped And that was the point. It just hit me. It just all kind of caught up with me. And I just didn't know what to do. I didn't have my business anymore. Every day I'd sit there and I'd think to myself, okay, how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to get out of this? What am I going to create? What am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And from a business perspective, it was really, really, really difficult. Number one, you've got no motivation. Number two, you've got no self-confidence. Number three, the way you feel like a failure at that point in time, but you can't figure out why. I didn't go for therapy. I didn't do anything to help myself. I did what, and without sounding sexist, I did what any man would do, right? Just deal with it. I tried to talk to a couple of friends about it. And the answer I got back was, man up.
Mm-hmm.
What have you got to be depressed about? What have you got to worry about? You've got everything. And again, this goes back to what we were talking about right at the beginning. You see the perception. You don't see what's going on, right? And, we're only talking about, say, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. You're not able to reach out. You at that point in time, you weren't. It was a sign of weakness to talk about your issues and your problems. I thought the only way out of it was to create another business, to push on, to just get on with it. So 2017, I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to really, push on, and I'm going to do this. Now, the way I found the strength to do that was just to brush everything aside. And to cover up that pain, I started abusing substances, alcohol, etc., etc. So that was my release. Outside of that, the only thing that was on my mind was I have to work. And I managed to get back on my feet, and I managed to build something in and around digital advertising that made me quite successful from a financial perspective. But I had this massive hole that I couldn't fill, this emptiness that I couldn't fill. And that was purely due to the fact I hadn't dealt with my issues. All I did was moving forward was trying to suppress them. So, going out 3-4 times a week, abusing substances 3-4 times a week. That's what my life revolved around. That was my escape. And then it kind of becomes a habit because you don't realize you're doing it. What you think is the reason why you feel so content is because your business is doing well. You don't put it down to the other factors the abuse that you might be causing yourself to try and cover up that trauma.
Well, what it is, you dealt with the financial problems that was happening in your life. You didn't deal with any of the internal problems that were happening with your life. So it's interesting because I would see your Instagram stories and posts and what you wear and what you drive, and I was like, what the hell is this guy got to worry about? Yeah. But okay, I didn't have it with that such naive mindset because you'd already told me. But the fact that you have this wonderful, from the outside perspective, lifestyle, it's so easy for people to just be like, no, like he hasn't got any problems. He has not got any problems, and it took me a while to understand it. But I think we kind of came into contact at the perfect time because I was just kind of progressing out of what you were still in or progressing into, maybe, because like you said, like we've literally had the same lives to a degree. The thing with me, and I never understood this comment until probably in the last 2 years to a year, really, was that my teachers always say at secondary school and primary school, oh, he's got so much potential, but he just doesn't do X. Yeah. And I was like, what are they talking about? What potential in what? A potential in being a science teacher or a maths teacher, or like what is this potential you speak of? And it really took me a while to understand it. And the thing that I think a lot of people, I wanted to reference it earlier, is that we live in, or a lot of people live in, a microwave society. Instant. Yeah. Everyone wants to be a millionaire or billionaire without putting in the work.
Yeah.
Everyone, like, listen, even like I have to give some influencers credit. You know, they build a brand for themselves. Okay, maybe there's not that much substance to some of them, but a lot of them, you know, they do that, and then they'll branch off and build other businesses. You know, it still takes a lot of work. That is a job in itself. You know, I couldn't do that. It's about running your own race. But going back to childhood trauma, environment, poor decision making, I used to be, I've had friends and obviously myself go through similar things. And like you said, you just think it's laziness and just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah,
just make that right decision.
It,
And we know when we know we're making these bad decisions, but yet we're still continuing to make it. And like you said, it becomes habituous and autonomous, which is the scariest part.
That's the dangerous part, when it becomes autonomous. Yeah.
And you're not even realizing. And literally 2019, I was sitting in the last gym, one of the last gyms that I worked at, and I was thinking about one of my friends who was going through some rubbish. Are we going to swear on this podcast? Yeah, he was going through some shit.
Well, no, let's keep it real. You know what I mean?
He was going through some shit with substance abuse and whatnot. And I had been supportive, but I think I could have supported him better. And then I was thinking about my past, and I was like, light bulb moment. I was like, you were an addict a few years ago.
Yeah.
And now I think there's different severities. I wasn't dependent on drugs, but if you're doing drugs Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think that's a different. That's a level of addiction right there.
I mean, look, the fact, the moment that I came to the realization of that fact that I was using substances to suppress not just what had happened in 2016, but for my whole life, right? You know, they say life begins at 40, right? And I was 40 years old, you know, and the scary thing is, if lockdown hadn't have happened, I don't know if I'd have been able to reach out and get the help that I needed or realize that I needed it. Now, kind of December 2019, when I was just like off on one, you know, I was out all the time. I was in a relationship. Everything was happy. It was all good. Kind of December 2019, I had things happen that just like really brought it home for me massively. And kind of started this process of going through a really, really dark phase, really dark. I couldn't talk about it to anybody. I'm quite a private person anyway. I don't really talk about much. And then having everything that happened previous, you know, suffering depression, etc., etc. All of a sudden, lockdown happens. Everything that is my escape has been taken away from me. Being able to go out, being able to socialize, being able to be taken onto into another realm, you know, like all this stuff, alcohol, whatever. You know, there was a point where I was drinking a bottle of vodka every day, without fail, going out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and God knows, I just wouldn't affect me, and that was actually, funnily enough, by March, lockdown happened, March. So by that time, that was the peak of it. And I already know that from that point, it already affected my relationship at that time. You know, my past traumas, the depression that I had not resolved, issues that I hadn't resolved, had all affected my life, my relationship, my work at that time. So you're kind of sitting there on your own, and you're like, okay, now it's time to spend time with the person that you hate the most. Yeah? Like, I hated my own company. Literally hated it. I just didn't like being on my own, because all these thoughts would come into my head. How am I going to run my business? How am I going to generate revenue? How am I going to look after staff? How am I going to bring in staff? Where is my business going? You know, all these questions, because the world just stopped. So you had nothing else to do apart from think about where you were in that moment in time. So I kind of had this epiphany where I just sat there and I thought, okay, there's an opportunity here for me to force myself at that point to try and figure out who I am outside of all these external influences. And you know, I was already doing therapy at that point, but then I stepped up my therapy. You know, therapy helped me a lot. Despite that, there was two occurrences, and I'm quite happy to talk about this, right? There's two occurrences, one in April 2020 and one in September. But September was this turning point, but April I was in such a dark place that I was like, okay, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. And I was literally sitting there on my own, and I could not handle my own head, my own company. I couldn't handle it. And all these problems, business issues, you know, personal issues, just these the constant. If I had one thought, that thought had 1,000 different arms to it, and those thousand arms had another 1,000 arms to it. And April, I was like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. I can't go on. And then the first thing that came into my head was, people are going to say you're selfish. If you commit suicide right now, people are going to think you're selfish. What about your daughter? And you literally justify it to say, well, I'm not a man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the self-confidence. I don't believe in myself. She'd be better off without me. That's the thought that goes through your head to justify it. I laid out everything ready. And that evening, I was ready to do it. And the only thing that stopped me was, I'm a Muslim, right? And you know, I'm like to think I'm religious. I believe in my faith, and you know, the punishment for suicide is eternal damnation. And you kind of sit there and you think, no, I can't. That's the only thing. I kind of pulled my socks up and I thought, okay, you know, I need to make a lifestyle change here. And I gave up drinking. And obviously, you know, as much as you tried, you couldn't get any drugs anyway. So because it was lockdown, so that wasn't even on the radar. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to give it up. Then I went through a breakup. And then that was purely my fault because of the way I'd acted, all this past trauma, everything that happened previously and stuff like that. And that, you know, you kind of going through this process anyway, you kind of have to come down to a very low point to be able to then grow from that, to learn from that. You know, what did they say that, you know, you've got to, every time you level up, you're at the bottom, you're going to feel very low until you can level up again. And then, you know, I'm kind of just trying to get pieces of my life together, trying to figure out who I am. I really didn't know who I was. But it was such a challenge because I couldn't deal with this, you know, I couldn't deal with the fact that I was still having to deal with my own thoughts and my own problems. And it came to September, and September was basically, I remember it was like a Friday night, yeah? And again, I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. This time I'm doing it. You know, I've given it a few months. This time I'm just gonna take my own life, and that's it, right? That's the best way out, because there's no, I'm unfixable. There's nothing going to save me. There's nothing going to turn me around. And again, the first thing that comes into my head is my daughter. Again, the same justification. And I sat there Friday night. I had everything in front of me. Between Friday night and Monday morning, I hardly slept. I was going back and forth. Now I'm going to do it. Now I'm going to do it. And then these thoughts come into your head, right? Listen, from a religious perspective, listen, you've got these businesses, like what the hell's going to happen? Your daughter, this, that, and the other. And you find a way to overcome it and then go back, right? And then, right, I'm going to do it now. And the way I think about it right now, it was a battle. I was battling. There was 2 people in that room. I was battling myself there. Saturday morning, I remember I made about 20 phone calls. Random. Because I needed to speak to someone. Nobody picked up the phone. Right? I remember nobody picked up the phone. And again, the whole day Saturday, I'm battling. Couldn't sleep. Ready to do it. Just that last extra push that would have brought me to that point. There was something just holding me back. And I remember getting through to Sunday evening and maybe about 10, 15 times I tried to just take these pills, and that was it. And then Sunday evening, so there was a voice that it was sunset, and something made me think, you know what? Okay, fine. You're going to do this. Pray for forgiveness. Pray for forgiveness. I prayed. And all of a sudden, I just had this calmness descend over me. Now, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be listening to this that are going to be atheists, agnostic, religious. This is not about the religious aspect of it, right? This was what I needed at that moment in time. For me, personally, everybody's journey is going to be different. And I remember praying and this calmness coming over me, and then actually finally getting some sleep and waking up Monday. But that wasn't the point that made me resolve everything. The point that made me take the step forward to try and resolve everything was the Sunday. Monday, I'd woken up. Wednesday, I had to go and pick my daughter up from school. So I picked her up. I'm going there to pick her up, and I remember parking up and walking up the drive, and I felt so much shame as a father. Right? I felt so much shame that what kind of a man are you that you were just about to take your own life and now you're walking to see your daughter. And I remember walking up that path and I just felt so much shame, and I felt at my lowest despite what I tried to do at that point. And I remember going into the playground, and she comes running over. She doesn't know anything. She's oblivious to everything. She's smiling, running over. And I'm just like feeling like I'm your dad. Like, I've been through this trauma and whatever, but I just feel like a shell of a man. So she's come running up and she's like, Dada, we did this quiz today. I was like, okay. She goes, we had to say who our heroes are. So that was when Black Lives Matter thing was happening. We were talking, and I was talking to her about civil rights and stuff like that. We talked about Martin Luther King, etc., etc. So because that was such a hot topic at that time, I thought she'd say something along those lines. And I was like, who did you say? And she looked at me like, don't you know? And she was like, well, I said you. And I don't get emotional in front of my daughter, rightly or wrongly, right? I never have done. But at that moment in time, I was like, I was just going to really break down, because I thought, how am I your hero? How on earth am I your hero? I don't even know who I am. I don't even know what my anchors are, what my morals, ethics are. I don't even know. How am I your hero? And I'm just feeling like I'm not worthy of that. So I turned around to her and I said, why am I your hero? And she said the words that I needed to hear at that moment in time to be able to take the step forward. She turned around and said, because you never give up. Now, how can a 9-year-old know the exact thing to say at that moment in time that I needed to hear to be able to say, wow. And the other thing was, how do you know I never give up? kids are so perceptive, it's unbelievable. And then from that day, I thought to myself, you know what? I've got to move forward. I've really got to make sure that I don't suffer from these demons again. You know, I've got to do whatever it takes. The problem that I had over those 2-3 years was there was nothing available for me to reach out to. There was nothing. I had no resource. Like, I reached out to you 4 years ago, 5, whatever it was, because I needed to talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to tell them about my issues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then at that point, I started taking therapy a lot more seriously. You know, I started working on my physical fitness. You know, I went from being completely overweight, 90 odd kilos, to really, you know, changing my body, because I think physical fitness is so important when it comes to mental health. But there was no resource available. Where do I go? You know what I mean? Who do I turn to? Who's going to understand the challenges as an entrepreneur that I'm going through? That I have not only the burden of my own personal responsibilities, I have the burden of my business, I have the burden of my child, I have all these burdens that are, burden probably isn't the right word, that's what it feels like at that moment in time, that I need to deal with. But who's going to understand that? Only another entrepreneur or somebody that is able to provide that kind of resource on that level is going to be able to understand that. And then that journey has obviously led us to where we are now.
Well, it's funny you say that. I think everyone understands their own issues in their own different way. And I think what is more important, apart from maybe a therapist, apart from a therapist, sometimes it's not about trying to understand why you do it, accept that you've done it.
Yeah.
And now you need to make better choices, better life decisions, better healthier habits in order for you to improve the situation. So, as I said, I'm going to class myself as being an entrepreneur, I guess, from when I started my own PT business, but I wouldn't say it was a thriving business, but certainly from 2017 was when things started to like go for me. You know, I went from earning like £1,000 or 1,600 quid a month from any job I've been in up until I was 23, and then like I'm earning like £4,000 to £6,000 a month from personal training. I'm like, this is amazing, but I realised I needed to remove myself from an environment that I was in, and no one had a gun to my head telling me to do these drugs. You know, at that time I wanted to do them. You know, it wasn't a thing to conform. I wanted to, like you said, not deal with any of the trauma that I had. So like, I got kicked out of my house when I was 18. My dad lives in Texas, so I couldn't go there. I had no family reached out to me. Yeah. They all knew I was kicked out. And just so you guys know, this wasn't, I had no criminal, I've still not got a criminal record. You know, I wasn't a bad kid. Just me and my mum, we just didn't get on. And so that changed something in me that day. I'm like, shit, your own family will kick you out of your house for literally no reason. Yeah. I was like, how can someone do that? Now, I've been really, really fortunate that I have lived with 3 of my closest friends while I was kicked out, and their families helped support me. But even then, even when you have this amazing support network, you have this great habit of self-sabotaging, which we love to do. And for me, it was letting down people. Someone that's done so much for me, and then I do something which I think in my head is insignificant, but it's actually quite important to them, and I let them down. And like you said, the guilt that you feel, and I'm like, these people have put me in their house, they're cooking for me, they're doing all this for me, helping me get out of debt, and I'm like, why the fuck have you just disrespected them like that? And like you said, I remember I was walking home once from work, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And loads of buses going past me, and I'm like, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, mate. Throw yourself in front of this bus and let's be done with it. And I was just walking slow, and I was like, the next one I'll do it, the next one I'll do it. And I think I just got scared. I was like, I'm really, really not happy in my life right now. But I was like, I think death scares me more than what I'm experiencing right now.
So was it just the fear of death, or was it another trigger, or another reason?
For me, I think it's the fear of death, because I've always been scared of death, even like from a young kid. And I think it was due to my dad moving to Texas, and I'm like seeing him once a year, and I'm thinking, with every passing year, he's getting older and older, and I've spent the same amount of time with him still. So I was like, I think that is a massive contributing factor. But I'll be honest, the turning point for me was my fiance, who I do take her for granted. I really, really do. So she'll be happy when she hears
You
this.
heard it here first.
But she's perfect, man. She is amazing, and if it wasn't for her, I definitely don't think we'd be sitting here today. I wouldn't be in the financial position I'm in today. And this wasn't through any of her actionable words saying you need to do this. Her presence, it was just her presence made me want to be a better person. I finally found someone that was in love with me, wanted to spend every waking moment with me, and I was like, I proposed after 9 months. We moved in very, very early together. I can't remember how long, and then I proposed after 9 months. So I think it would have been about 6 months maybe that we moved in together. She, this woman who I know she doesn't, not earning loads of money, took me to Mexico for my 25th birthday, spoiling me, and I was like, I'm marrying this woman.
Did she know? Did you open up to her about the problems that you were facing and stuff like that?
None of them.
Really?
None of them. But she knows me like the back of my hand, and she knows. She like drips and drabs. Where she'd actually known me for years and years before we were even together. She knew like I used to do drugs and stuff like that and whatnot. But in terms of the childhood trauma, she wouldn't have known any of that until we came together and started speaking about my mum more. But that was it. And I remember I had this. I was living at my old house where my dad used to live when my mum and dad split up. And there was this some of my dad's old stuff there still. And there was this little yellow pot there. And I remember when I made the decision to start saving money, and I was earning good money, and my overheads were nothing. And I remember I'd saved like £500, and I was so proud of myself. And I called her. I was like, "Babe, I've saved £500. I've saved." I was like, "When we've got this much, I'm gonna book us a holiday and whatnot." And then I remember like when we'd moved into our first place together, and I hadn't stopped. I was like, I am not stopping now. I'm loving this. This is coming from a person who always spent out their means, even when they didn't have money. So I'd be in debt. And I remember I had £20,000 in the shoebox from all the cash that I'd saved from all my personal training clients. And I would count it. And every time I put more money in there, I would tell her, I was like, "Babe, I've saved this." And next thing you know, I'm treating us to holidays. We've got a house. We've got a beautiful 1-year-old daughter together. And here we are today. You and myself have got 2 businesses that we run together. Now I'm glad because you've kind of gone into a bit more depth into your personal issues, and I'm sure. I'm happy to speak about mine, whether it be on this podcast or another one. But I think the most important thing for people to be able to take from these is, don't have the naivety in thinking you are alone, because every single person in the world is going to or has gone through some sort of mental trauma, whether it's from childhood, whether it's from an experience that they've had as an adult. What people have to realize is people are going to react to the situation differently. Some people will experience it straight away, open up. I need to get help. Because we know that therapists exist. We know there's CBT courses and things like that. It's about having the courage. I think it takes a lot of courage to do therapy. It's something that I know I need to do. I've recommended it to clients, and they've said best thing they've ever done.
Therapy is almost, the thing about therapy is it's almost like a swear word. Do you know what I mean? If you say to people, you see a shrink? Therapist.
You're a psychiatrist.
What's wrong with you, man? The thing is, the irony is, nowadays therapy is dressed up as coaching. I have my coach that I'm gonna go and see. The thing is, different people deal with different things, exactly how you say. But, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make sure that people don't have to hide behind anything.
Yes.
Yes.
Like
you said, and you hit the nail on the head. Some people are going to turn around and say, I need help. Now, what we feel is they're able to reach out to a resource that's going to be able to give them the solutions. But there's going to be some people that are going to sit there and say, do I need to do this? Can I deal with this on my own? Am I able to just get over this? This is just a slump. I've lost my mojo, whatever it is, right? That's the worst thing that you can do. That's the worst thing that you can do.
I personally believe, and whoever hears this, if you've done it, then you can send us an email and tell me I'm wrong. I don't believe for 1 second that anyone has got over some serious mental trauma on their own.
No.
And you might think you've done it on your own. So up until a few years ago, I've been with Becky 5 years this year. Up until a few years ago, I thought I did this all on my own,
Yeah.
Even though, because Becky's not told me to do anything. No. Yeah. Just her being there.
That's right.
Has made me want to do these things.
For me, one of my biggest anchors in my down times, this is especially the first time back in 2016, you're in this really, really dark place. You kind of want to reach out and talk to people, but you don't know who. It was my best friend. And I used to call him up at 4:00 in the morning. He'd answer my calls. He'd always answer my calls, no matter what. And he was the only person that would sit there and he would just listen. He would give me advice on certain things, or give his perspective on certain things. But the fact that he was on the other end of the phone and he was listening, that was enough for me at that moment in time to make me feel like, okay, fine, I've got that off my chest. I can relax for a little bit. Mm-hmm. You never ever get over that emotion. But the fact that he was there, like literally every time I called him, there isn't a single occasion he never picked up. Whether he was at work, whether he was out, he would always pick up the phone. You know what I mean? And
that's you know what I mean? Like I can't even begin to describe how lucky you are as a human being to have someone like that, and that's the whole thing, the whole thing of feeling alone and that no one is there for you, and some people will be in that situation where apart from an external resource, nobody is there for them. But that's why I'm so, I can't even think of the best describing word, grateful, happy, excited, that because with the therapy side of thing and helping people, we always look through one avenue. Yeah. You need to go and see a therapist. Yeah. Well, that might not work for me actually. Yeah. What else helps? So we're trying to encompass everything. So all these routes of entry that we got. Do you know what? I don't think I need therapy. I'm going to try a fitness program, or I'm going to try yoga, or I'm going to try meditation, or whatever it may be, or just being in a community of like-minded people.
Whatever that first step is that allows you to move forward on your journey, take it. Yeah. You might not be ready for therapy right now. You might want to work on your physical fitness. It's not a problem with that. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you're acknowledging that you have your mental health needs some kind of assistance. Don't suffer alone. This is the biggest thing that I've learned. Do not suffer alone. There's so much resource out there. The problem with it is it's so fragmented. You don't know who to reach out to. But let's say, for example, you're spending £150 on therapy. Well, actually, know that your therapist is any good. You know, even that's going to play on your mind, right? When you're a business owner, when you're an entrepreneur, right? And you know, a lot of people associate themselves as entrepreneurs, and however each individual wants to assign that label to themselves, great, fine. But you know what? Ultimately, what you're saying by using that title is, I have an idea, I have a belief, I have a passion. I want to take this idea, belief, and passion to market. So, and I want to make a living off of it because I really believe in my idea. That drive and that passion takes up about 80% of your energy because you're constantly, that you live and breathe it. You know, I've seen people work 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, because they firmly believe in what they are trying to achieve in their business. And everything else gets kind of put to the side. You know, it's kind of, you lift your head up and all of a sudden your business is doing great, but you've been through this journey and you haven't addressed any of the issues from prior that then may represent themselves. And, you know, it's taking that first step and being able to say, you know what, I understand my life is very different to somebody that works 9 to 5. And my priorities are very different to someone that works 9 to 5. But I need a resource. I need to take the first step to be able to start this journey and get over the challenges that I'm facing. Now, look, we've talked about extreme examples. You know, not everybody, mental health doesn't have to be extreme. Mm-hmm. Mental health issues, depression, anxiety, stress, etc. It doesn't have to be at an extreme level for you to take that step. There could be small factions of it, small factors of it that may affect your day to day. Address them. Have the confidence to turn around and say, you know what, I need help. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to reach out. It's okay to turn around and say, you know what, I've got a problem here. I'm suffering here. You know, I want to speak to someone. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Do you know what I mean? Mm. So, you know, ultimately having all these resources under one roof should prevent that barrier to entry for people to access exactly what they need. Now, when you're talking about, I mean, we kind of banded about this word, you know, entrepreneur. What does it mean? And it's funny because your perception of an entrepreneur is someone who's already achieved something. Yeah? But that's not the case. Being an entrepreneur is a lifestyle. It is. It's you live it and you breathe it. It's what you do every day. It's not the end destination. It's what you do on a day-to-day basis to push forward that passion that you have, right? And it's funny how you disassociate the two. Because, look, you know, I was having a conversation this morning about, you know, what is, how you kind of a roundabout way, how do you class an entrepreneur? Well, if you've got somebody who's running a nail salon and she's running this nail salon and she's making a business out of it, she's an entrepreneur. Yep. You know, this label, we've kind of attached this label to success.
Millions in a Ferrari,
Millions
Rolexes,
in a Ferrari. No,
you know?
It's the road to success. It's the journey to get to that point. And again, you know, hopefully every week we can bring in people that are representative of that whole, you know, the whole community out there and the environment out there and the different people that are running business from now micro businesses are on the rise. People are starting to take the initiative and run businesses at home, to SMBs, to your bigger companies. You know, if you're out there living your passion and your dream and you're making money out of it, you know what? I wouldn't call you an entrepreneur. I'd call you blessed. It's as simple as that. Right, that if you're able to live out your dream and your passion and make a living from it, you know, and I suppose what we're trying to do is ensure that everybody that's doing that is able to do it to the best of their ability.
100% that, and I think lockdown has made a lot more entrepreneurs. Yes. Funny enough,
yeah.
Lockdown for me has made me realise that I am one, and like you said, I associated the word entrepreneur with someone who's already successful, and that's why when people call me an entrepreneur, I'm like, but no, I'm not where I see myself
that's
yet.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why
that's right.
I'm understanding now. I'm like, no, I am an entrepreneur. You know, that my whole journey is my journey. Yeah. It's not anyone else's. So whatever level of success I think is deemed satisfactory to me, you know, it kind of is what it is. But it's. And it hasn't done it for everyone, but like lockdown, you had to pivot, you had to adjust.
That's right.
And for me, I invested into myself and booked onto a fitness business mentoring course. Now, this was dressed up to be something that it certainly wasn't, and I ended up only paid for the whole course, but ended up only getting about 5 to 6 months worth of good value from it. But then I accepted it. I'm not going to throw my toys out the pram and start like chasing mentors and saying, I want my money back. I'm like, okay, you screwed me over a little bit, but you know what? Everything that I did learn, I'm going to double down on. And shit, it's helped me massively in ways that, like, my biggest year for profits last year. You know, this year I'm hoping to double that.
But you see, this is the thing, right? Because you had dealt with a certain degree of your mental health issues, you were able to identify the opportunity at that point in time.
Well, I was fortunate. A friend of mine, I haven't actually spoke for a month now, and I definitely do want to speak to him. He's a lot younger than me, and people can have that misconception that you're younger than me, so you can't know more than me. Well, he knew a lot more than me, and was a lot more open-minded than me. And he had advised me to do a course, the mentoring course. I brushed it off the first time. I'd already had like 50 clients. I was like, I don't need it. I know what I'm doing. But it's to scale. It's to be able to do what you're doing, make more money, but either work the same or work less. And then he said it again. And I was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. And he influenced me to start reading again and just be more open-minded, you know, and put my ego to the side, which I think was a hard thing to do sometimes.
It's a really hard thing to do. Really hard thing to do.
If you've built something, you know, and it is doing really, really well, but it still could do better. It's hard for you to be like, so you're basically saying I'm not doing that good then, aren't you? You know, that's you kind
of take it personally, right?
Yeah, I took it. You do take it kind of personally, but I thank him definitely for giving me just to, I guess, put that ego aside and having the crop. But
you know, you talk about ego and talking about entrepreneurs and stuff like that. I see so many entrepreneurs, right, that regurgitate the same stuff over and over and over again, right? Trying to, I don't know what they're trying to do. Are they trying to create exposure for themselves? Because they're not helping anybody with the stuff that they say. All they're doing is trying to portray something that isn't achievable. You know, people need to start talking about their losses, not their wins. Because how our losses affect us from a mental health perspective, and trying to overcome them, while all this time you've got to push. Remember, you've got no revenue coming in. You've got no money coming in unless you sell. That's your whole remit. So the fact that, you know, you're going to have so many losses, how do you deal with that? None of these people talk about it. They'll come up with some rags to riches story. I was such and such, and I became such and such, and I did this way, and I did this. It's all regurgitated over and over again. And I just hope that we can really strip back, to the core fundamentals of what it means and the challenges that people face.
It's the struggle. And
it's the struggle, that's right.
I have this on my check-in form. We have, what was your biggest win this week? And I say, what was your biggest struggle this week? We need to address it. Why did you struggle with it? What can we do so that next week we can either completely do a load of damage control and eliminate this struggle, or you just find a better way of dealing with it if it's something that's unavoidable. And like you said, they go from literally rags to riches. Well, I want to know what happened in between,
how did
bro.
You get there?
How did you get there, man?
How did you get there? And then, how did you deal with your losses? How did you deal with the issues that you had to face? Who did you turn to? You know, a lot of the time you hear about entrepreneurs, I was on this journey on my own, and, you know, I really got through, and they're inspirational stories, right? But it doesn't necessarily need to be that way.
100%.
As a community, as a global community, we're a lot closer and a lot more interconnected now. So why can't we help each other? Why can't we learn from each other?
You can get to the same destination but still take a different path.
Exactly.
And that's what people need to understand, you know. If I get to £1 million this way, but he gets to it that way, is one of us better than the other?
No. That's right. I mean, look, I've always been of the mindset, and I know you are as well, that you can just learn from anybody. You can learn from anybody. The difficulty that we have is applying those learns, applying them to whatever we do on a day-to-day basis. The other thing is, when we do face those challenges, and we do, I mean, obviously in my network, I have a lot of entrepreneurs. I have a lot of people that are business owners, and we talk and we talk about the challenges that they face. And again, they're not all as dark as where I've been. My example, I would say, is quite dark, right? But they face challenges, but they don't know who to turn to. And do you know what they do? They just keep going. They just keep going. They just keep going. Now, that's going to have a psychological burden on you and your decision making moving forward. So, you know, I'm really excited to be able to provide a resource where, you know, people can come and address their issues and deal with their issues. And, you know, who are you ultimately giving back to? Yourself. And ultimately, if you can do that, then everything that around you and that's associated with you, your family, your friends, are going to reap the rewards of you.
Spot on.
As an individual.
If you are happy, you will emit happiness and people around you will be happy.
Yeah.
If you are negative, everyone else around you is going to take in that energy. And or they, if they're in a really high place mentally, they will recognize that and then they'll cut you off with that. Yeah. We don't want to be associated with that. We don't want that negativity in our life. So, yeah.
I think so. We've covered a lot in this.
A
hell of a lot. A lot more than I think we were planning to cover. But you know what? What are the takes from this? Everybody's going through issues. Don't let the facade fool you. Everybody is going through their issues. Our perception to this world, and you explained it, I'm guilty of that. The perception that you put out to the world is very, very different, or what people put out to the world is very, very different to the reality. And remember, you know, you're not on your own. You're not on your own. Everybody is, if you're going through it, somebody else has been through it. Somebody else has been through it, and they've got over it.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got over it.
I think if we could kind of bullet points it's that you've not done this. There's more than one person going through what you're going through.
Yeah.
There's more than one way in order for you to improve your mental health.
Yeah.
Through different avenues, like we said, through physical fitness, through therapy, etc., etc. You can get to the same destination, but go a different pathway in order for you to be successful. And to be an entrepreneur does not mean you are right now wearing a Rolex and you're driving a nice car. It's that you're actually broke right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you're building your business and you're like, oh man, I'm going to be really tight for bills this month. I'm going to have X amount. You know, I have to really live in my means. I can't really socialize, but that's the journey.
That's the journey.
You know? The struggle is the journey, and that's what makes it that much sweeter, because you feel it's a reward.
Yeah.
From yourself.
That's right.
It's just about just sitting back, realizing what you are, planning something out. Okay, what is this going to take? How much stress is this going to put on my life? Do I have the capacity to be able to deal with this? If the answer is yes, great. You've probably got a great network behind you. If the answer is no, you need to have what's the word? Let's say the courage and the humility. You need to have the humility to be like, I need someone else to help me with this. Reach out.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's what Leading Minds is about.
You know what? And the other thing is, you know, when we start touching about the therapy side of things, you know, I think it's something that we shouldn't be ashamed of. You know, it's the help is out there. All we've done, we haven't reinvented the wheel. We've just brought it in one place, under one roof, for everybody to access. And we've only done it off the back of the fact that these things have helped us.
Exactly.
And that they can help, you know, everybody else that's going through these situations and everybody else that is finding it challenging, especially with everything that's going on at the moment, you know. But yeah, that's the first episode.
Well, guys, thank you so much. This is episode 1 of the Leading Minds podcast.